Hello again from my front porch. I want to. I really, yeah. This is. I really debated even doing this one. Um, and in doing it, I debated how to go about doing it. And you should really be intrigued now to want to know what it is that I even want to talk about. Now, I know that there's a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark right now, the Iowa women's basketball player who now has been selected to go into the WNBA draft, and she just shattered all kinds of records while she was a college player, and now she's already shattering WNBA records, and she hasn't even played a single game yet. I don't. I assume she's been on their court by now, but there hadn't even. But I mean, all kinds of hoopla around this, and of course, there's a whole debate as to whether she's the GOAT or not. I already talked about that in a past episode. That's not where I'm going to go with this. Um, I want to address what I call the issue of toxic humanity. And I say it that way because some would want to use the term toxic masculinity. I don't like that term. Not just, well, of course you don't like it, Paul, you're a guy. No, that's not the reason why. The reason I don't like it is because I don't think the toxicity that's being referenced is a gender thing. I think it's a personality thing because when you hear people start talking about what they define as toxic masculinity, honestly, there's some females I know who behave in many of those ways. It's not. I don't think it has to do with a gender identity thing. It has to do with just your personality, your inner character, wherever it draws from. Uh, but I don't want to. I don't want to go off the rails on that because I mean, first of all, if you want to talk about toxic masculinity, well then we never talk about toxic femininity. And so what would that even mean? Would that mean you are too feminine or not feminine enough? Well, if you're asking those questions over here, why don't we not ask them over here? Toxic masculinity, is that too masculine? Not masculine enough? What is the point of toxic masculinity is that you're just being a jerk, that you're treating people horribly, and that you are thinking that because this is my opinion and this is what I believe, that you are somehow enabled to inflict that onto everybody else and be almost a bully like person, heavy-handed, forcing your opinion onto everybody else. And that's again, I don't see that as a toxic masculinity. That's just a toxic personality. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't matter what other words you're using, what other word term gets attached to that. If someone starts talking about you and whatever that total description is includes the word toxic anywhere in that label, it's a problem. It doesn't really matter what the other words are that may or may not be there. If toxic is one of those words, this is a problem. And so but it's the best term that I can think of to describe some of the negativity that I'm now seeing in regards to Caitlin Clark. First of all, there are those who want to make it a racist thing. That they want to say, oh, there's all these really great players currently in the same group that just got drafted, but also historically women players of color who were not given the level of hoopla that Caitlin Clark now has. And so that then becomes defined as, in fact, I literally saw somebody say this on social media, that meant that people were just waiting for a, quote, great white hope to come along and be the one. And until they had that, because if you had strong players who were not white, well, that wasn't good enough then, so those didn't count. And so they needed a Caitlin Clark to come along. I think that's bogus. Now, are there racist people out there? Absolutely, there are. There's no question about that. There are a lot of morons and idiots out there who assume things about another person because of the pigmentation of their skin, which is absolutely stupid. That tells you nothing about a person at all. But there are a lot of people who would say otherwise, and are saying so about Caitlin Clark. You know, both about her personally, but also about the people who have elevated her to superstardom. Now, the funny thing is, when I'm looking through social media and seeing people who are liking or loving posts, who are resharing, who are commenting, I see literally every walk of life. Male, female, all kinds of pigmentations, but a broad age range. Every demographic appears to be represented. But then there are those who are critical, and some of the criticism, is I will call it valid in the sense that it's them basing it on fact. It's like I don't accept LeBron James as the GOAT of basketball. I think Michael Jordan lays a better claim to that, and there are facts that line that up. Now, you can also parade a lot of facts for Jordan. You can parade a lot of facts for Kobe. You can parade a lot of facts for Wilt Chamberlain, for Larry Bird. I mean, different people have a different definition as to who they believe the GOAT is, and they can back that up with facts. That doesn't mean that one is a critic and the other, it just means you have differences of opinion and you can back up your opinion. But since we have no common definition as to what a GOAT means, it's open for debate. Well, it's similar kind of thing now with this thing with Caitlin Clark, where a lot of people want to proclaim her as the GOAT, which I understand where that comes from, because again, she shattered lots of records, but she still has a whole career ahead of her. She still has a long way to go. And people are like, well, but she'd never won an NCAA tournament. Okay, true, but that in and of itself should not be the definition. You look at what she's accomplished, it's really impressive. And you look at the response she's getting. The whole reason we're even talking about the WNBA now is in large part because of Caitlin Clark. And you can say, well, there was a lot of really great, strong players this year going into that WNBA draft. Yeah, there were. However, Caitlin Clark is the one who, not only was she the number one pick, but her jersey for the new team, the Indiana Fever, sold out. Boom, all sizes, right? And I saw a stat today that said she sold more jerseys in one day than the Cowboys sold all last season, all jerseys for all places. Caitlin Clark, who has not yet even played a game in Indiana, her jerseys sold more than the entire Cowboys did last season. I mean, that you put that in perspective, it's so clearly there's something about her that really has inspired a lot of people to say, there's lightning, there's smart. And again, there's some that say, well, it's racist. I don't buy into that, but that the people who would say, well, she's not because she didn't win an NCAA tournament, or I like this one better because they did this or that, okay, fine, you got a different opinion. But the real issue are these people who are now maligning or even mocking Caitlin Clark because she's female, basically. There's a former football player who is now apparently scrambling for some semblance of relevance by tweeting to Caitlin Clark on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, about her personal grooming habits down there. And she blocked him. Now, the reason we know about this is because he then proceeded to screenshot that he'd been blocked and bragged about being blocked by her for making this crude and inappropriate comment. This guy is about twice her age, and he ought not be commenting on things like that anyway. But it's like, okay, who cares? Nobody really cares, but it has sparked a lot of discussion. And I saw the actual original thread on his profile, and there are a lot of people jumping in to condemn him, to say, no, this is wrong, this is low, even for, you know, and all just dumping on him, just dumping on him. But there are a few, and I hate to say it, all men, who are stepping in and saying, well, I don't know, looking at her, you know, I think he has a good question. Others saying, well, I don't look at her face, or she probably not even into guys anyway, you know, and nonsense like this. That's the toxicity, because those comments, those observations have nothing to do with anything. It is an ugliness inside that person who sees this young lady from Iowa, who is just skyrocketing, not only for her value and her superstardom, but she is just blowing the doors off the whole WNBA. We're having these discussions now about pay scale, that the issue has always been there, but now we're talking about it because of her. We're seeing these rapid viewing numbers just exploding. We're seeing the venue that, and I talked about this previously in a recent episode about the teams that are going to be facing her team, getting bigger venues, and the season tickets selling out that have never happened before for the women's team, and all of this going on, all circling in on her and then expanding outward to impact all these other things. This is huge. It's phenomenal. And instead of the whole thing being celebrated, you have these toxic people who look at that all and go, yeah, well, let's see. How can I sound like a complete moronic jerk? Well, this former football player found a really good way. And apparently some of his Neanderthal knuckle-dragging followers also have chimed in on that. But it's not just this guy and his followers. I've seen on other places too. Again, I don't know there's been any women. It's all, the comments all seem to be coming from guys, where they will say things like, all this hubbub, blah, 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 but you know, when the season actually begins, none of you are going to watch anyway. Nah. You know, it reminds me of, if you've seen the movie Major League, I think it's in Major League 2. Yeah, where Randy Quaid or is it Dennis Quaid? I think it's Randy Quaid. Plays this fan up in the stands of the Indians, and you know, he's all like, all right, at the beginning of the season, all right, this is gonna be our year, this is gonna be our year, and then as they start to stink, you know, he's like, they're no good, throw them out, and even his buddies get sick of him, and they tell him to take a hike. But then later, as the team turns around again and improves, all of a sudden he's back, and he's like, all right, you know. And some of these idiots that I see commenting about Caitlin Clark and all of that's going on around her now with these expressions of toxicity remind me a lot of that character, because it's like, you know, they acknowledge all of the great things happening, and then they go, yeah, but they're going to blow it in the playoffs anyway, you know, like the Quaid character does in the movie. And I just, maybe I'm just wired different. This is probably why most of my friends are women and not men. As I told somebody recently, I don't have a lot of men friends because, frankly, I don't like hanging out with men. Most of the things that men want to talk about don't interest me. And the things I want to talk about, they look at me and go, what's wrong with you? You're some kind of weirdo, geek, nerd person? Yes, actually I am. Thank you. But I often, that's just been my experience. And so these conversations happen, and I have trouble wrapping my head around them because my brain doesn't go that direction. I just don't get it, though. I do not understand the need to cut down Caitlin Clark or any of the others who are getting success. Yeah, there were fantastic players in the past, and they accomplished great things. And even Caitlin Clark has thanked many of them for blazing the trail, for opening the door that she's been able to now go through. Without them having been there first, there would be nowhere for her to now be shining in. She acknowledges that, she praises them, she lauds them, and in exchange, several of them that she's acknowledging sit back and go, well, she's not really the best because, Now, some of those people, especially those former basketball player females, they seem a little more concerned about their own reputation. That they're like, well, now wait a minute, she's not replaced me. I'm still. There's that need to hang on to the thing that defines you, that one part of your life where you were actually successful at something, and you don't like the idea of someone else replacing you now and bumping. But the reality is, the world has evolved and changed, and whatever it is that brought Caitlin Clark to the forefront is now this big bright spotlight that's shining over everything and improving the whole thing. And we should all be celebrating that. But instead, you have some individuals who just can't help themselves. That toxicity inside them just has to come out. And it's unfortunate. What I, though, am pleased with, because it'd be very easy for me to do this episode and just focus in on that and be like, oh, there's that. But what instead I will focus on is how the vast majority, there are these idiots, these morons that show up that make just outlandish statements, crude comments, unnecessary remarks, and it's very clear that they're just saying it because they're just a jerk. And so that happens. However, the overwhelming majority, and I'm conservatively understating it. The tidal wave of other opinion is shut up. Stop being stupid. Stop being a jerk. Stop trying to make this a racist thing. Stop. Caitlin Clark is awesome, and look what she's doing for the sport, and look at the role model she has set. She is expanding. There's little girls who are now watching this stuff who had never paid attention. There are adults watching this stuff who'd never paid attention before. Has it been there? Have there been fans? Yes, absolutely there have been, but there weren't enough. Why is there pay disparity? Because there weren't enough people watching. There weren't enough people paying attention. There weren't enough people buying the merchandise, buying the season tickets, buying all this stuff. Now they are. Now they are. This process has started. That genie is out of the bottle. Is it always going to be just Caitlin Clark doing it? No. But she now has flagged a point in history where she has now been somebody who has kicked open a door so that everybody could flood through it. I think that is admirable, and so do the majority of people. Caitlin Clark was on Saturday Night Live, probably one of the best segments they've done in a long time, and when she was introduced, the audience applause just was excessive. It was clear from looking at the anchors of the news segment that they were not expecting that level of applause, that length of applause, and somebody clearly cued Caitlin to just go ahead, because she starts talking while the audience is still responding in an attempt to get them to, okay, whoa, because we got to keep this moving along, and I mean that in a microcosm is exactly what's going on with Caitlin Clark right now, and it is so exciting to see. And if you are the kind of person who has that level of toxicity in you, and you just want to strike out at Caitlin Clark because you just can't handle people being happy, you can't handle people being successful, so you just gotta try to throw darts to pop their balloons or whatever. Fine, you just go and you do you mouth off however you see fit. Just be aware of the fact that by and large, nobody else agrees with you, and you are going to out yourself as being a curmudgeon that nobody wants to talk to, that nobody wants to spend time with, that people will block because they recognize that you are toxic. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of other people, myself included to an extent. I mean, I enjoy college women's basketball. The Iowa State women's basketball team traditionally has always been stronger and consistently better than the men's team. The men's team has had ups and downs, but the women's team has been pretty strong consistently overall for decades, for a couple of decades here now. So that I've always enjoyed following them and watching them, but never WNBA. I don't know that I've ever paid any attention to WNBA before. Now I'm probably going to watch some of these Indiana games just to see how Caitlin does, to see how all of that transpires. So even myself, I don't consider myself toxic because I'm here talking about this stuff, but I didn't engage with it. I didn't pay attention to it, but now I will because of the Clark effect. And that's going to continue, and it's impacting so many others, and I think it's great. I think it's especially great that so many others in the country also recognize how great that is. So there you go. The toxic humanity is out there, and it is showing rearing its ugly head on occasion in this whole Caitlin Clark discussion. But thankfully, the toxic humans are greatly outnumbered, and I hope that trend continues until those who are toxic don't feel like they should even open their mouth or say anything, because every time they do, they get shouted down by sensible, grounded, healthy mind, healthy heart people. All right, with that, I will let you go, and I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.